up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Miami. This is season 7, episode 13. And honestly, this felt like a filler episode. It was cute for what it was, but let's get into it. Y'all, so I don't really have anything for the spicy corner other than an announcement. It looks like September the 25th will be the last, well, not the last episode, but the finale of season 7. So this is what was posted by OMFG Reality TV, and it says hashtag RHOM season 7 finale airs September the 25th on at Bravo TV. And that makes sense because Real Housewives of Salt Lake City premieres, I think, on September the 15th. And then we have October the 5th is when Potomac comes back. So definitely Miami and Orange County are being, their seasons are coming to an end. But yeah, if you wanted to know that, there you have it. All right. But let's get into this review. Y'all. So like I said in the intro, this was definitely a filler episode, but it was cute for what it was. So the episode opens up and we are in Gertie's house in her closet. She is on FaceTime with Stephanie, trying to check up on Stephanie and see how she's been since she's been on the first cast trip. And Gertie can tell Stephanie she ain't have a good time. So she's like, how have you been? And Stephanie was like, girl, that was a lot. That was a lot. So then Gertie asked her, have you spoken to anybody else on the cast? Have you spoken to Marisol? Have you spoken to Alexia, Julia? And Stephanie's like, no. Probably Stephanie has only spoken to Larsa. And so she was just like, yeah, that was a lot to take in. Like, I've never experienced that on a trip. So then the scene shifts and we go over to Alexia and Frankie's beauty bar. Mind you, it was so much going on in there. So at least we know people patron that business, because you had people getting their nails done, their feet done. Somebody was getting their tape ends blown out. I said, girl, it is a beauty bar. So I guess it's a one-stop shop for everything. Alexia is also on FaceTime with Larsa. Mind you, whatever Alexia was doing, that I guess they didn't have the camera set up to film her, because we just see the top part of her head as her hand is stretched out to here while she's on FaceTime. So Alexia is talking to Larsa, and she's basically doing what Gertie's doing, checking on Larsa after the trip. And so Larsa was like, yeah, the trip was okay, but she don't want to really be fighting on this new trip because this week they're going on the cruise. And so Alexia is like, I don't want to fight either. And she was like, well, maybe we can help each other. Like, you help me with Stephanie, I help you with Lisa. And then we see Larsa in the confessionals being like, well, I don't know what's going to pull me and Lisa back together, but if Alexia wants to help, I'm open to her helping me. So we go back to Gertie's closet, and we see Gertie talking to Stephanie, and Stephanie basically says, for the cruise, I'm thinking about bringing nautical Steph. And Gertie is like, who is nautical Steph? And she's like, that's me. Like, when I'm on a boat, I just chill. So I'm hoping if I bring my personality where I just chill, I'll have a good time and there won't be any issues with the way that I speak or deliver my messages or my opinions to everyone. And Gertie is like, okay, I'm ready for Miss Nautical Steph. So then the next scene we have is with Marisol and Julia. You have them meeting up at this coffee shop, and basically they're doing the same thing that Gertie and Alexia and Larsa and Stephanie were doing, checking in on each other since the trip to Seville. So Marisol asks Julia, so how are you? How are the kids? How is Martina? And Julia was like, well, before I was leaving, the boys were helping Martina make a pie. And so pretty much we end up seeing them FaceTime Martina. We see the pie. It actually looked really good. And we see the boys. And I will say this, although I don't like the fact that Julia and Martina adopted them 2 black kids, because I don't like the way that they treat black women or speak about black women, I will say it does seem like Martina is really invested in them kids. Like, she seems to really like being around and really invested in them boys' lives. So maybe that's a good thing. But I am looking at Julia funny, because I'm like, you were the one that was pushing adopting them kids, but it seems like Martina really is very much hands-on. Like, these kids are her kids, So Marisol's like, that's great. She was like, but what about your daughters? They do the flashback when Masood, Stephanie, Martina, and Julia went out on a double date, and she shared with them that she hasn't spoken to her daughters in a long time. And Martina and Julia were upset about that. Then they go to Seville, where she was, no, it wasn't Seville, Marbella, when they went to meet her friends to ask the guys to be the godparents, and she was crying to Derek about, you know, like, can you talk to my kids? Can you tell them to talk to me? Like, I miss them. I want to speak to them. And he said he would do it for her. So she shares an update and tells Marisol that her oldest daughter, I think her name is Victoria, I think she's 23 or 24. She actually has been in communication with her. And the last time they were on the phone, when she got off the phone, Victoria said, I love you. And Julia was like, I held my breath. Like, I was just so elated that she said that to me. You know, that was little, but it meant the world to me. So then you have her talking about her other daughter, Emma. Emma, I think, is 19, and she was like, Emma's a lot more stubborn, and she's hoping that Victoria can talk to Emma to soften her up to speak to Julia. And like I said before, I think there's way more going on with this situation. Honestly, I look at it like three ways. One, this could just be being played up for storyline, but I don't think it is. Two, I feel like it's more to this but this adoption situation. Like, I don't think it has anything to do, because I've seen people say, like, maybe they're upset because they're black. I don't think that's the case. I think Julia was not an involved parent. I really do go back to when she didn't even know the name of her daughter's schools. And I'm thinking about how my parents have functioned. They was not playing. Like, they knew every school that me and my sister went to. So I'm like, why? You only have two kids. It's only me and my sister. Like, why do you not know what the name of the school? Like, if I can remember my cousins, my baby cousin's school, and I don't, they are not in my vicinity, and like, I don't understand why you can't remember that. You know? So I'm like, it doesn't seem like Julia was that invested in her kids the way she liked to play. And I wonder if the kids, if her daughters feel some type of way, it's like, well, you weren't that invested in us. Why are you getting them kids? Are you getting them to have like a redo? Like, what's up? But I also think Julia has never really grieved the death of her son. Like, that was traumatic. Somebody killed your child. Like, that's traumatic. That's traumatizing. And I don't think Julia has ever dealt with that. And maybe her daughters feel like some type of way. Maybe it changed how she parent them. And maybe they are like, girl, you're only adopting those kids to fill that void. I don't know. But I really do feel like there's more to this than what Julia is trying to make it seem. Like, they're upset about the adoption, but they may be upset about that adoption because you didn't really consider their feelings, you know? So then the conversation shifts, and they start talking about the arguments and everything that happened in Marbella and Seville. And she's just kind of like, Marisol is just kind of like, I don't want that to happen. Like, I want to have a good time on this cruise. She was like, I kind of have like PTSD from all that yelling. She was like, I kind of felt shaky after all of that. And Julia is like, well, yeah, Stephanie was really upset that I decided to get on the private jet, but I also was taking up for you and Alexia. And Marisol is like, yeah, like, her delivery, her energy is just off. She was like, I like Stephanie, but like, she comes off very bossy, very loud, and it's like her words can be very cutting. And I'm like, Marisol, so can yours. Okay, like, you can cut people with your words too, all right? And so Marisol is like, it's almost time for the cruise, and I do not want what happened in Seville to happen on this cruise. Like, I want to have a good time. Like, I want to have a good time. I don't want to ruin my relationship with Richard. Like, I want this to be a wonderful, fun time for us. She was like, what happened in Plaza de España? It can't happen. And they showed the flashbacks when Alexia and Stephanie was yelling at each other and all of that stuff. And Marisol's like, I just hate that I scheduled this cruise and we had such a bad time in Seville, and now we about to get on this cruise. She was like, I don't know. I don't know. So then the next scene we have is with Kiki and her dad. Like I said, the next scene was with Kiki and her dad. And this scene was like annoying because her father didn't take any responsibility as to how he contributed to the trauma that he gave her as a child. He tried to brush it off. He tried to say, well, you wouldn't be here if that didn't happen. And it shouldn't have happened to begin with. So they're at this restaurant and, they're sitting down and Kiki is trying to convince her dad to eat salmon. He was like, I don't want no salmon. I don't like no salmon. And the dad is just like, mm-mm. And Kiki's like, well, daddy, you too Haitian. Like, you have to eat other foods. Like, you just can't be eating all the Haitian food. You got to diversify your palate. And he's like, I don't want no salmon. Okay. But she laughs it off. They then start having a conversation about how she is grateful that her father actually talked to those family members that were threatening her and giving her so much anxiety. And she was just like, thank you. And he was like, I appreciate your support. He said something to the effect of like, it was my responsibility to support you. So in the confessional, Kiki is like, I'm grateful that my dad actually, was a dad and protected me no matter how old I am. Like, I appreciate him for that. They flash back to when she was crying and telling Alexia, Julia, and Gertie about what was taking place. And then while they're sitting there, Kiki is telling her dad how grateful she is that, they are mending their relationship, because she was like, it took her some time to forgive him after the hurtful things that he did. He said something to the effect of like, you're my firstborn. I would never. But then you could tell when Kiki was drinking her wine, she made a face like, what you mean you never? You did hurt me. So they do a flashback to last season, when she told the girls when they were in Mexico how she was kicked out of her house when she was 15 years old because she took like modeling pictures in a swimsuit. And she's like, in the Haitian culture, they associate whether it's any type of modeling with like adult content. And so they basically tried to say like I was like some prostitute and they kicked me out the house. My stepmother told me she wanted me gone. She told my father she wanted me gone, and he just allowed her to kick me out with just like bags in the rain by myself. So I was living, pillar to post, as the old people say, okay? And so we see that flashback. We also see Kiki at the reunion explaining the history. So then the dad, like I said, says something about like, you are my firstborn. I would never. And Kiki makes a face like, what? Because then he says something to the effect of like, that I would never treat you badly. And it's like, but you did. And Kiki was like, but you did. You allowed that lady to kick me out. And you can tell that he feels bad for what he did, but he won't acknowledge and validate her feelings, because he won't even like look her in the eye. Like when she is saying like, no, but you kicked me out at this age. He then was like, but look at all these cameras. And I'm like, so you're trying to say because I kicked you out, you wouldn't be where you are now. So she kind of laughs and she's like, no. He was like, look, we're laughing now. Like, you have all these cameras. Why are we going back to the past? Kiki says in her confessional where she's just like, in the Haitian culture, it's pretty much taught to you that you don't tell your parents when they're wrong. It's like you don't check them when they do you dirty. Like, you basically accept it and you just kind of move forward. But she was like, I'm going to therapy. I done worked on myself. And she was like, I'm glad I got these balls enough to tell him how I feel. So he says something about if someone acts badly towards you, they are hurting themselves, not you. Basically, he feels like he did more damage to himself by kicking her out instead of allowing her in the house. That don't make sense to me. Because that's what that translates to me. Like, no, you hurt her. You may have hurt yourself by like realizing how horrible your actions were, but you still hurt her. You still hurt her. And so then he ends up saying this, like, he was like, Kiki, just listen. He was like, don't forget everything that happened wasn't my fault. I didn't do, but it's not all your fault, but you co-signed it. You are an accomplice to this lady getting kicked out of her house when she was 15 years old because you sided with your stepwife. You should have protected your daughter. What's not connecting, sir? What's, come on now. And so he's like, we're sitting here together at this lovely restaurant. Things happen. We can't go back to the past. And Kiki says, yes, I know we can't go back to the past, but like, I am learning to accept what happened between us and move forward. So then the salmon comes to the table. He eats it because it's salmon tartare, which is actually really good, and he actually likes it. And I'm hoping that's a sign that eventually he will tell her, you know what, I am sorry, because I feel like that is what she needs to hear is, I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I did not protect you. I'm sorry it took me this long to cultivate a better relationship with you and my grandkids. Because that's all she probably will need in order to really just open like herself up to him. And maybe even if he does give her that, she might not do all of that, but she deserves an apology if you ask me. So the next scene we have is of Lisa packing for the cruise. She's in her room trying to get everything together, and her and Jody start having this conversation where she basically talks about how it's weird for her not to be a Mrs., which makes sense because when Lisa and Lenny got together, she was in like her early 20s, and now she's in her early 40s. So that's 2 decades of like being somebody's wife. It is, and being a wife for a lot of people, and being a husband. Honestly, being in relationships, period, it becomes a part of your identity. So I can understand her saying it feels weird. So she's like, it just feels weird. Then she's like, this hand right here, it's not where the ring at, Jody, basically. And she's just like, like, I'm ready. Like, she was like, it's weird that I'm not a Mrs., but I would like to be a Mrs. again, but I don't want to be a Mrs. to him. And when I tell you Jody's like short-circuited, he started to glitch. I was like, Jody said, well, I said, Jody.
Feels like air.
Yeah, well, we'll look at that.
Anyway, I'm not in a rush anyway to get married.
That was funny. Cause that man glitched. Like Jody was just like, well, and then you got Lisa being like, well, I'm not in a rush to get married. So she know what she was doing by asking him that on camera. Maybe she wanted a response or something, or maybe to really drive it home, like, bro, I want to get married. I've told you I want to get married. But like Jody was just like, he looks like that meme of that lady that got caught up in divorce court, where she's just like, after it's revealed that she cheated on her husband with like several other men, or like I think another man or something like that, and he like busted her out in court. Like Jody just looked stuck. Like he didn't know what to do. It was like, okay. And so in the confessional, they have a dual confessional together. And Jody is like, I love Lisa. I love her, but like, it's a lot. Being with her is a lot. And I definitely think we need to talk to somebody, because there have been times where we have gotten into arguments and I've ended up having to sleep on the couch. Lisa is like, why would you share that information? Like, she is shocked. She's like, why would you say that? And then she's like, no, be quiet. And then she's like, edit this out. And Jody's like, well, girl, it's the truth. It's the truth. But I'm also like, what are y'all arguing about? Like, are you arguing about wanting to be married and he's not ready for that? Or is it something else? Because my thing about it is, I don't fault Jody for not wanting to marry Lisa. If I was a man, or me just being as a woman, I would not want to marry a man who is still in like crazy legal battles with their ex, and they're not divorced yet, and the legal battles aren't over. Like, that is a lot of responsibility and a lot of a headache that you are willfully walking into. So I wouldn't do that if I was like myself, or if I was Jody. So then as they're sitting there, they start talking about what's been happening in between Lisa and her relationship with Larsa. And he's like, Jody says, like, most of the time it's the court problems, but now it seems to be like separated, where it's like 50% court issues, 50% your group, your friends, and all of that stuff. So they talk about the whole text message situation between Larsa and Lenny. Lenny is like, honestly, Larsa is the one that initiated like the text messaging situation. And he's just like, we've always texted each other and been that way. They flash back to when Kiki tells Lisa while she crying at the dinner table, like, you texted Lenny and told him about what happened between you and Larsa in the elevator, and he been texting Larsa all afternoon. Lenny maintains that he wasn't being disrespectful or speaking to Larsa in a condescending or demeaning way. He was like, I was just trying to tell her to stop. But again, I still maintain what I said. I don't follow my friends' men. I may have a number or two, but you're not just going to be texting me, because I'm going to think she told you to text me so you could check me. No, you're not going to play on the phone I pay for. That's just not how we roll over here, okay? That's not how I get down. And then I will say, Lisa did make a good point where she was like, if I was texting Marcus, Larsa would lose it, which she would. Larsa would lose it if she was texting Marcus. But I want to say this. Well, you know what? before let me finish up this scene. So Jody brings up how, like, why am I getting so much flack when I was just texting her, but you had Russell pretty much chastising her, saying you need to show some respect. Now mind you, they was putting 20 on 10 because when they showed the flashback, Russell wasn't pointing at Larsa. He basically told her to watch her mouth when she speak to his wife, especially now during that time where Larsa revealed that Gertie had cancer, and Gertie didn't want everybody to know about that just yet. And even Lisa was trying to like hype it up, and he was like, I like Russell, but I'm not trying to say that it's like Jody is basically like, what he did seems to me way worse than what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And Jody was just like, I just need you to talk to Larsa and just tell her, like, Jody don't want to be in it. I don't want to be in it. I just want us to like dead that situation and we move on with our lives. But I will say though, Jody looked different compared to what he looked like in the confessional and when he having this scene with Lisa. Like, he looked a lot way skinnier in that confessional. I'm a little concerned. Cause in the scene it's given beefy, healthy. In the confessional, Jody looking a little skinny. I don't know. Just a little observation that I seen. So the next scene we have is with what's her name? Stephanie, and I think is it Anastasia, but I think it's Anastasia Beverly Hills. It's basically the owner of the company. We actually see that Stephanie is making these Christmas gift bags. We find out that she is going to be throwing a Christmas party at Shoma Bazaar, the restaurant that we saw earlier in the season. Kiki's charity is going to be there. They're going to have like a specially made drink, and all of the proceeds for the people that purchase that drink will go to Kiki's fundraising foundation. So she was like telling her assistant while they were putting the goodie bags together that Anastasia like sent all of this stuff over, and most of the stuff that they were using was actually like out of stock, and so she was just like, well, not out of stock but sold out. So she was just like really appreciative, and so we actually see Anastasia get there. We find out that they have been friends for a few years, and they became friends basically at a friend's birthday party. And she was like, when she met her, Anastasia said, the first thing she said to Stephanie was like, I love what you do on your Instagram. And Stephanie was like, oh my God, I was about to pass out, because Stephanie looks up to her. I mean, Anastasia Beverly Hills is some good makeup, and the only reason why I know about it so much is because I'm a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, and that's a part of the prize that some of the queens, well, not some of the queens, if you win, that's what the queens get, and sometimes when they win mini challenges. But I also have a friend who is really into makeup, and she has told me how good like their lip liners are and things of that nature. But Stephanie just gushes about how the company is like, that company is almost worth like $1 billion. So she just really admires her. So they have created this relationship, and she tells Anastasia about like the gift bags, why she's making them, what it's all there for. And we actually see them sit down. Stephanie's new confessional. Now this look good. This is given, I'm a businesswoman, but I'm 40. This is her best confessional. Okay. To me, this is better than the bun, the brown with the bun, better than the red, and definitely better than the white where she was trying to look like Jackie O. Like this right here, whoever did this glam girl, you need to keep them. She look expensive. She look like money. I'm eating this up, okay? So pretty much they sit down, and Anastasia is like, girl, I thought like when I got the call that you called me that you was going to be telling me that you was pregnant. And she's like, girl, no. She was like, I just turned 40 and Masood is like 24 years older than me. Like, I don't even think like he want them kids like that. And Anastasia's like, no, like, girl, the way he is with them dogs, he would love to have a kid. I was like, that does not translate, ma'am. Like, that does not translate. Because he love that dog don't mean he gonna love them kids. And so Stephanie is just like, she's too worried about all the what ifs when it comes to having a kid. She's like, what if the kid doesn't like me? What if he tries to unalive me? She was like, what if the kid turns out to be a bully? Like, it's all these what ifs for Stephanie. And she's like, I'm better off just, we fine. And so she tells her, like, if I'm going to start having kids, I need to, like, get my eggs frozen now. And Anastasia's like, yeah, girl. Yeah. Yeah. Get them eggs frozen. Okay, so while they're talking and having this conversation about babies, it transitions to Stephanie telling Anastasia about how she's just like, I need you to help me. Like my delivery, like I'm struggling with my delivery when it comes to my friends. And she really felt seen because Anastasia tells her, like, it's because you work with men. Like you can't show weakness. Like you have to be very direct and very stern. And Stephanie was like, yes, that's why I said you're either the shark or the food. That's how it is in business. You can't be both. And she's just like, they always tell me that like I'm too like curt with people. And Anastasia ends up telling Stephanie, like, I think being in this group of women is good for you because it's going to make you think before you speak. And Stephanie was like, I rarely do that. And it shows, Stephanie. And she's just kind of like, I need to work on this because my sisters say the same thing about me. And Anastasia was like, well, keep working on it. Keep working with these women. She was like, if they see you trying, then they'll accept it. She also says, like, there's no other reason why they would not like you. And I'm like, there are a lot of other reasons why they wouldn't like Stephanie. But I also don't like how women who are like Stephanie, who do have very direct approaches, always attributed to it like, well, I work in a male-dominated field. Okay. You know how to speak to children. So that means you also know how to speak to other women. You're choosing to speak that way to them because you want to get the same treatment that you get with those men that you speak to that way. Like, if Stephanie wants to work on her delivery, whether it be with the women or her sisters, she would work on it if she felt that it was important to keep those relationships. So the whole, like, I work with men doesn't really work with me. Like, to a certain extent, I can understand. But if you're saying that this is your personality and this is how you get down, then you have to deal with people not wanting to be around you. You have to deal with people being like, well, I don't like to be spoken to in that way. So instead of just actually like accepting you, I'm going to just stay away from you. But clearly it bothers Stephanie that people don't like her delivery or don't like being around her, or she wouldn't be constantly being like, everyone keeps telling me this. Yeah, we'll fix it. Try to find a way to find a happy medium. So it is now time for the ladies to get on the Virgin cruise. It's a really nice ship. I told my friends I want to go on one of their cruises because it looks like it's a vibe, okay? The food look good. The staff looks fun. It seems like it would be a fun time. So we see the women get to the cruise ship. Marisol is like, you know what? I'm just hoping it's a good time. No problems. You got Alexia saying, thank God we ain't have to take Stephanie's plane to get here. And Larsa is like, she's just hoping for a fun time at sea. Okay, and Stephanie is saying Nautical Steph has arrived, so she's hoping it's a good time for everybody as well. All right. We then end up seeing the cruise greeters, Kate and Andre. I think that's how you say his name. And they was hype. They got me a little hype. I was like, you know what? You got a good staff. You can have a good time on a cruise ship. So everyone is excited to see them except for Stephanie. Stephanie gives very much like old lady. Like for somebody to be 40, and maybe I'm just basing this off of like my cousins who are in their 40s, they be lit. Like, why are you not lit? And then I think about the women on Real Housewives of Atlanta. Majority of them are like 40 plus. And it's like, they be lit. Why are you not lit? Like, Stephanie, where's the youth? Give us the youth. Because she was just like, I said, girl, okay. So we see them go to one of the balconies on the ship, and Marisol is toasting about how this is going to be a fun time. This is our cruise to have just a relaxing time. And then we see like the sunset. We find out that they're only going to be on the cruise for like 2 days, and they're just going to be, I guess, in the ocean around Miami. Okay, or around Florida to be exact. And the sun is kind of setting. We see Kiki has noticed that Lisa still has on her wedding ring. I think she said she has it on her middle finger. I think she said her middle finger. And Kiki is like, girl, why don't you like sell it? I don't know, like, why are we still wearing it? And she was like, well, I like it. And I thought that was weird because I feel like as much bad things that Lenny has done to Lisa, I would not want to keep anything of his. Like, I would think that's bad juju. Like, I definitely would have sold that ring and just got the money back. But like her still wearing it, I'm just like, girl, for what? I don't know. There's something about Lisa and Lenny where I feel like she still somewhat cares about him in like a weird way. Like maybe she is mourning the life that she used to have, you know, living on Star Island, having all that access to all that wealth and status and all of that stuff. But I'm just like, he did you dirty. And it was like he publicly embarrassed you. Ma'am. No, let him go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. So then Gertie notices Adriana's energy is really down. She asks her if she's okay. Adriana talks about how she has like a pinched nerve, I think, in her shoulder. And then Gertie is like, well, you know, I feel bad, but like this is weird. She was like, your birthday is coming up next week. And I feel like it's weird that we're not celebrating it. And Adriana says, well, you know, I don't like celebrating my birthday because, you know, there's a lot of ageism when it comes to women getting older. Gertie's face when Adriana said ageism, she was like, girl, okay. And she was just like, it's a lot. So in the confessional, Adriana is talking about how, you know, she stopped celebrating her birthday after 40. She was just like, I've been turned, like, you know, Adriana is basically saying that she was turned in for a newer model twice, okay? And Gertie is still trying to speak life into her, telling her she's beautiful, you're gorgeous, like, Adriana, be happy, you know? Then we have Gertie in the confessional being like, girl, I'm 47. And I said, girl, you look good, okay? Real good, Gertie. Okay. And so she tries to do this pose and she was like, you know, don't do that. That's my back fat right there. So she was like, you know, just give me head on. And I mean, like, after beating cancer, and I already think Gertie already has this perception of herself, but like, she's beautiful, just like Adriana is beautiful. But it's hard for me to have sympathy for Adriana, even though I understand where she's coming from. It's because of the way that she spoke to Marisol when they were on them yachts. You said that lady was an old whore. You called them the mean cougars. You said she had wrinkly legs, bony knees. Like, you had no problem attacking her and shaming her for the way that she looks because she has gotten old and she's like a year or two younger than you, and yet and still you over here moping because your birthday is about to happen. And my thing about it is, if you stop celebrating birthdays, more than likely you're dead. So turn up, bro. Like, be happy. You know what I'm saying? And what it boils down to it for me when it comes to Adriana is, Adriana is not where she thought she would be at this age. She thought she would still be married to that French man. They would be jet setting all across the world and she would be living her rich, fabulous lifestyle. But that is not what is happening. And I do know there are times where you have to mourn what you thought life was going to be. I've had those periods. So I do know it is hard. It's extremely hard to accept that, but you have to accept it because it allows you to be opened to newer possibilities in your life that will probably outpace and outmass what you thought life was supposed to be for yourself. On top of that, I think Adriana is somebody who is very male-centered and does seek a lot of validation out of men, especially in her younger years. She might not be as much right now, but like in her younger years, especially on the show, she was very male-centered. Because my thing about it is Adriana reminds me of Joan Crawford, but more so it was the Ryan Murphy show. I think it was like Betty and Joan. And it was about their feud. And I remember they kept honing in on how Joan felt like she was being pushed aside. And she did not like the fact when they would introduce her to newer actresses that were younger than her. And the fact that she could see the way that men were treating her. Like, the men were treating her like a mother, or they were very much indifferent to her, or they just blatantly ignored her. Whereas when the younger girls would come in, they would all perk up, and she remembered being treated that way as well. And I think that is what Adriana means when she said people can be cruel, is because she notices how men treat her. And Adriana is somebody who used to seek a lot of male validation, and maybe till this day she might, but it's like she notices men don't treat her the way they used to treat her. They're not rushing to like buy her a drink or to dance with her. But I'm like, what men are you seeking? Because I feel like everybody should have the Luann, the Countess approach. That lady is in her 50s, maybe her 60s, and still living that hot girl lifestyle. And the men love her, young and old. I feel like the men will love Adriana young and old, you know? But Gertie basically tells her, girl, we gonna turn up and have a good time. Let's drink, let's party. And Adriana said, girl, I'm already drunk. So and they laugh about it and they move on from that. Marisol basically says, let's go to my room. I got cockies and I got some good food. Marisol's room, nice. It's called the Rockstar Suite. big as hell. I would love to be in there. It was really nice. Lisa is like, girl, this is nice. Like, normally these rooms be small, but this is wonderful. Kiki is like, she deserves to have the rock star. She kept saying suit instead of sweet, because she was like, I live that rock star lifestyle. And so while they're sitting in Marisol's room, she talks about how she does not want a repeat of what happened in Seville. So she said for the first night, and then Lisa kind of cuts her off because she was like, girl, that was embarrassing. That was very embarrassing. And they're all kind of like, well, yeah, it really was. And so they flash back to when they all got into it. Stephanie and Alexia yelling at each other. Larsa being like, la, 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 like to Lisa. And Lisa saying, lumpy or bumpy. And it was just a lot. And so Marisol's like, yeah, it was embarrassing. And she's like, I don't want that to happen this first night. So I want to separate us. So she said, me, Alexia, Lisa, and Adriana are going to go to this hotel. And then Gertie, Kiki, Stephanie, and Larsa are going to go to this other, like, did I say hotel? I meant restaurant. Go to this restaurant and y'all go to this restaurant. And so they're like, okay. But then someone was like, well, how are we supposed to be working on our issues if we're not talking to the people that we're like we're not in the groups with the people that we have issues with? And Marisol's like, look, I'm taking a page out of therapy. We need to talk these things out and then come to the table and, conversate with each other, because right now's not the time. So then Steph was like, well, I agree, because I don't want to go to no water time jail. And someone was like, well, no, they only put you in water time jail if, you're being unruly, or someone said something about drugs. No, I think they said they only put you in water time jail if it's drugs. And they were like, no, they also put you in water time jail if you're being unruly. So they're just like, ooh, yeah, we all need to take a beat and just enjoy each other separately for right now. We see the separate dinners, and Lisa is on time. Actually, she ends up beating Marisol and Alexia to their dinner. Julia was the first one to get there. And when Marisol and Alexia get there, Marisol is like the third person to get to the dinner, and she's like 53 minutes late, and then Alexia comes. And Lisa is like, oh my gosh, I beat you. And she's just like, how come it's all jokey jokes that y'all are late, but when I'm late? And they're like, girl, when you're late, your jokey joke is as well. Like, you laugh it off and we keep it pushing. We're taking a page out of your book. And everyone's in their confessional like, girl, you've been on time one time, and now all of a sudden you think you could tell people what, like, chastise them for being late. You got Marisol basically saying, girl, the amount of times that you have been late, I have like coupons and receipts of how many times I can be late. Like, let's not play them games. Let's not do it. And Lisa has this face like, and it's like, yeah, Lisa, just because you were on time one time, no. But Lisa says she's turning over a new leaf. Now she's divorcing Lenny, or she's divorced from Lenny. So she's like, maybe this might be my new thing. We see the other women go to the other restaurant. And mind you, I like that aesthetic of that restaurant so much more. It looked like a lab, like for like a biochemistry or a chemistry lab. And I like when you enter into the restaurant, they had like the periodic table, but it was all like different like food items. And I was like, oh, whoever thought of that idea, you ate that. Like, that was so cool. So Kiki got to the restaurant first. She's waiting for Larsa, Gertie, and Stephanie. And while she's sitting there, she's just kind of like over the fact that the women have to eat separately. She was like, we're friends. We should eat together. Like, you know what I mean? She also talks about like, maybe I just need to put on my therapist hat so I can get us back together. We then see Gertie get there, but you can tell that she's not feeling well. She makes a similar comment to what Larsa made when Larsa was like, girl, this boat moving too much, and Gertie was like, I'm there with you. So the rest of them are taking shots. Like Stephanie, Kiki, and Larsa are taking shots. So then we go back to the other group, and they're just talking about like, how the separate dinner they think is a lot better for just the first night, and how they want to have a good time. Then Adriana gets there. Mind you, she just has this look of like annoyed. Like she was so quiet throughout the dinner that you actually forget that she was there. And normally that's not the case. And so Julia's in her confessional being like, I don't know what's up with Adriana. I don't even know what's up with our relationship. And I'm like, girl, you definitely know what's up with y'all's relationship. You switched up on her. That's what's up. Like, what are we talking about? So it goes back to Kiki and the other girls. And Kiki is asking Larsa, girl, we got Lisa to unfollow Marcus. Why are y'all still beefing? And Larsa is like, I'm owed an apology. She was like, I'll apologize. And I have apologized to Lisa. When I called her a bitch in her home, I apologized. But she's like, she has done a lot more things other than following Marcus. Like, that's like the bare minimum. Like, you should have unfollowed him. She brings up how, one of her issues is that, they accused her of setting Marcus Jordan up with the whole paparazzi picture when he was sniffing that AC during the Olympics. She was like, for them to accuse me of like setting him up, calling a paparazzi is wild to me, because she was like, how was I supposed to know where he was at? Honestly, she didn't set him up. It was the Olympics. Every athlete known to man was there in France during the Olympics. Even people who weren't participating in the Olympics, who are athletes, were there because they wanted to see the Olympics. So I don't know why Marcus felt that free to be sniffing AC out in public by the beach, like not by the beach, but by the pool with some watermelon and fruit. like that's his fault, okay? But Larsa is like, they're crazy if they thought I did that. But also Larsa is moving the goalposts, because you've been harping on she needs to unfollow Marcus. She needs to unfollow Marcus, and when she finally does, you still mad. So you got to get over it, Larsa. Get over it, okay? So it goes back to the other dinner, and Lisa talks about how, like, she doesn't know what's up with her and Larsa. She was just like, I just want to stop fighting. She was just like, I just want it to be over. And they started talking about the whole Jody of it all. She was like, she attacked my boyfriend. But then Alexia was like, girl, your boyfriend was in it too. Like, you got to nip that in the bud. But Adriana, you could tell, is getting annoyed. And she was like, look, your boyfriend shouldn't have been following or texting Larsa. But also Larsa has to get over this as well. And so they're just like, y'all got to move forward, because we all over this argument. So then they start talking about Stephanie and all of this stuff. Well, no, before they start talking about Stephanie, it goes back to the other table. And Larsa's saying, like, she needs to apologize, but the apology needs to be up to here. She's talking about Lisa. And I giggle when Gertie said, both of them women need a muzzle. Because at this point, I'm over it as well. So we get back to the other table, and they start talking about Stephanie and Stephanie's delivery and things of that nature. And they're like, Stephanie needs to work on her delivery. That's just what it boils down to in the group. Like, they want Stephanie to work on her delivery. Stephanie doesn't really feel like she says she needs to work on her delivery, but she was like, just because my delivery was off doesn't mean that I'm wrong, which I don't think that, yes and no. Because you could be right, but people won't receive it. And you could be wrong, and your delivery could be wrong. But I got what she was trying to say, or what she was saying. And she was like, she knows she needs to work on her delivery because her sisters have also made gripes about her delivery. But then she also says, like, I'm not just going to be like bowing down to anyone, basically. So the girls kind of like have to meet her halfway. And then Gertie says, you know what? Nautical Steph has left. So then the final scene we see is of Marisol and Steph having a conversation. And what it boils down to is Stephanie thought that her having all this money and access and being who she thinks she is was going to gain her a lot of favor in this group. And it bothered her that Marisol and Alexia don't like her or did not get on the plane, because she thought when they were consoling her in the car that they were friends. She was like, I thought you guys were my safe space. And Marisol was like, there are no safe spaces in this group, girl. Like, it is what it is. And then Stephanie talks about, well, sometimes when I get angry, I just, I say things that I don't mean. And then Marisol was like, well, girl, are you trying to say that, like, you cut really harshly, but you don't mean it or something like that? And she's like, no, like, I know my words can cut, but like, that's not how I'm trying to be with you guys. So then Marisol talks about how, like, basically the whole how the plane situation went down. She was like, look, I didn't really want to go, and I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. She's like, I knew you were going to be upset, but I didn't think you were going to be this upset. She was like, I was the one that told Alexia I didn't want to go, and I was fine with her going. But then I was like, you haven't had a fun time either. So you should come with me and we go walk around Seville and have a good time. She was like, we really didn't get to have a conversation about it or things of that nature. And then things blew up. She was like, I don't want you to think that you owe me anything. Like, you don't have to give me things. Like, I like you. So, like, you don't have to keep telling me the price of your plane. Stephanie was like, well, I think Larsa is the one that said that. But she was like, okay, I'm sorry that you feel like I've been doing that, because that's not been like that's not what I want you to think of me, pretty much. And so she was like, what I was really upset was Julia basically told the whole entire bus that I was bossy. Mind you, Stephanie was the one that asked Julia to tell her why the women didn't want, like, why Marisol and Alexia didn't want to come. And she was like, but for y'all to think that I would leave you. But Stephanie, that's what you said. You said if things went awry or you felt disrespected, that you would leave the ladies in Marbella and they would have to find their way back. You threatened them with that. And when they react to it, you have a problem with it. That's crazy. But they basically are like, you know what? Let's be cool. Marisol says, you know what? I like you. Let's move forward. Let's start a new Mighty Mouse. And they both are like excited. Well, not really Marisol, because they're about to do an 80s workout. The screen goes black and it says 8 hours later. And we see Alexia and Stephanie having the same conversation that she just had with Marisol again. And then you could tell Stephanie is irritated, because Alexia said, well, Marisol felt really offended by this. Then it's the next day after the trip, and you see a sit down with Adriana and Stephanie is calling Marisol a jealous demon. And she was like, the lady was like, I guess it's someone who waits and hides, and then she comes at you from the side. But she was like, if you gonna come for me, you better like not miss, because I don't miss. Here's my thing about Stephanie. I don't get what she wants. Like, the lady told you the truth, but now all of a sudden she a jealous demon. And I'm not saying that Marisol isn't a demon. There's been so many people that have come out and said how Marisol moves shisty and sneaky out in the real world. But if we're keeping in context with this situation, I'm not understanding what Marisol has done for Stephanie to be this angry. Because y'all had this sit down. She told you that she liked you. She told you the truth that, hey, I didn't want to go. I didn't like all the rules that you had for us, and that's why I chose not to go. I also was tired of the fighting, but now you're still mad. Like, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it with Stephanie. It just feels like Stephanie is mad that the women aren't like, what's it called? It just feels like Stephanie is mad that the women are not up her ass. That's what it feels like. She thought the money was going to get her favor. She thought the girls was going to be clamoring to be her friends. And that now that they're not her friends, it's an issue. Because I need next episode to explain to me why she this mad at Marisol. Because I'm not getting it. And like I said, even though I like Marisol, I know based off of all the things that people have said about her, especially people that have come out and been like, girl, no, she evil, that I'm not negating the fact that, like, she could be a demon. It probably is a demon in the real world. But in this context, I'm not seeing the issue. That's just it. But yeah, y'all, that is it. That is all. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in them comments below and subscribe. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.